What's up, everybody? It's me, Erica, and this is the episode 3 and 4 recap of Behind Her Eyes. Okay, so let's get to it. Now, this is going to be 3 and 4 together. So we're going to just do it in a conversational style. I'm going to go through the scenes as I've written them down. The last time I didn't write down much, I was just going on my head, from my head. So I want to make sure that we get all of the details. Because episodes 3 and 4 to me were more like, let's give you clues than to actually give you context. So it was a lot of clues that were given. So we go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment. Let the diva know you stopped by. And let's get down here. All right. So we start off with in the instructions, right? Pinch myself. I am awake. All of those instructions that were given at the beginning. And we see the way that it starts, we see that um, Adele is asleep, and you can see David standing over her, and then like she turns around and he's gone. So I don't know if she was in a dream state. Um, Anyways, we see Louise is actually in the office early. David arrives to the office early. They kind of run into each other. It's a very awkward situation. Adele calls David at the office. He kind of sneaks out and gets to the office early, and she calls him and asks him where was he and what time did you get home. Then she tells him again, I love you, and he paused, and she's like, um, you can't say it. And he was like, I love you too. Right. Then we see Adele like walking in David's office. She takes his coat and she puts it up to her nose and she smells the coat. Right. And then she goes into a flashback. And then you could see she's crying at in the window. She's looking out. So I guess she's figuring out now that something is going on with David. It's happening again, right? So she sends Louise a text message asking, does she want to go to lunch tomorrow? And Louise is kind of like, shit, like kind of ignoring her. Like she ignores her for a few times. Then we go back to a flashback. And again, it's Rob and Adele, and they're smoking. And he kind of mentions to her, like, what would David say about this? And she was like, something about keeping secrets, right? And then they start talking about him practicing. He's like, I'm so tired of counting my fingers. So Adele seems to be teaching people how to astral project, right? And to have these be able to control their dreams. So she's teaching Rob this, right? And she tells him how he needs to keep practicing so that he'll get it, and that once he sees the door, he'll be able to go anywhere he wants to go. So now we're back to reality, and we see her counting her fingers. Now David comes to Louise's house. Now he's at Louise's house, and once again we see like this hovering. The camera direction is hovering, and you can really tell at this point that someone is watching them. It's happening too many times. Um, and she tells him, I feel like shit. He tells her, I feel like shit. And he's like, don't you? And he was like, I haven't felt like this in a long time. I felt so alone, right? So he's talking and he's giving her this, I felt so alone. You know how married men do. I feel so alone. I don't know where I am in my marriage and all of this other foolishness, right? So he's giving her that. And she's like, we can't be a thing. We can't be a thing. Um, what he asked her, why did you get a divorce? And she said that her husband had an affair with somebody at work. So she's in the same position that she was in as, as the other woman, basically. And then let's see what happens. So what's really wild is that he tells her that you shine. He uses that word, you shine. And immediately I thought of The Shining, because part of what Danny was able to do was called shining, right? He was able to get into and see things and hear things and speak without talking and all that stuff. So that reminded me, and The Shining is one of my favorite movies, actually one of the first scary movies that I saw in the movie theater. Yes, I was probably like 5 years old, and my mom took me to a theater. I remember we were in Oregon, and I went, and it was in the theater, and I saw Shining. I remember having a nightmare at that night, but I remember after that I had a love for horror movies after that. So The Shining is one of my favorite movies. So as soon as he said you shine, I immediately thought of The Shining. I was like, okay. And then she was like, well, what about your wife? He was like, she used to. And then again, you see this hovering happening around them. So Adele is in her kitchen and she's chopping this red pepper, like chopping steel on marble. So it sounds really like aggressive, and she's chopping. Then you see her sitting at this table. She has made this whole dinner for him. He walks in and it's starting to go upstairs, and she was like, I made dinner for you. And he's like, I'm not hungry. And she was like, I'm trying to make you happy. I'm trying to put in the effort to make you happy. And she was like, David, is this happening again? And he was like, you tell me, should I start looking for another job? Like, what do I need to do? So we're trying to figure out what is this that's happening again. Again, in this episode, it's a lot of clues, not a lot of like, it was like, okay, what's going on? That's how I felt. Tell me how you felt. So then Adele is looking at a map. She's looking at this map, and then they show her running. So she's running. She texts Louise, did I do something wrong? And then David calls Adele. David calls Adele, and Louise eavesdrops, right? She's eavesdropping on the phone. And then he was like, you worried me. He's telling her that he was worried by her. And he was like, well, what are you going to do today? And she goes, well, I'm just going to go to the gym. She's always going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to go by um, the Cozy Cafe for coffee. And he goes, do I need to make an adjustment? Do I need to, what is going on? And then she was like, no, no. And so on the phone, she's listening, and Louise doesn't know. Girl, you don't know what you've gotten yourself into with these two people, right? So then Louise, she sends her another text message, and then Louise, after that phone, she always feels, it's almost as though David does something to Louise and she runs to Adele. And it's almost as though Adele knows that something just happens with David, and she makes herself available for Louise, right? So the next thing we see Louise and Adele having coffee, right? And she is talking, kind of setting this up to almost seem as though David is a perfectionist and he wants to control everything. And she's almost setting it up like he's abusive, right? The way that she's talking about him. She's very, very smart. I was like, oh, I see what she's doing, right? She was like, it's just he wants to control everything. And when it's too stressful, he starts drinking, right? And then she goes, he's sleeping in the same, in the spare room. And she tells Louise that she doesn't have anybody to talk to. You're my only friend. So she's creating this kind of codependency where Louise feels like, oh, Adele needs me. And then Adele is letting Louise know, I need you. So she feels needed. She feels like she needs to, like whatever's going on between her and David, she kind of wants to protect Adele. And she mentions it later. So she was like, I'm listening. And she grabs her hand, and, they are talking. And so she didn't ask her, so how's everything going with the notebook? She was like, you just have to keep practicing. And she was like, I keep pinching myself and this and that. Then Louise asked, well, who's Rob? Because it's Rob's notebook of him practicing how to do these instructions. And he's an old friend. We know that he's not just an old friend, that they have a deeper connection. Right? So then Louise is back at home, and she picks up the book, and she immediately has this flashback, and it's Rob running from what looks like zombies. And as he's running from the zombies, you could tell that he realizes, okay, I'm dreaming, and I do not have to experience this. And here's a door, and the door finally appears for him, and he walks through the door. Also, when he walks through the door, he walks into this garden and he sees Adele. And then, of course, he sees this like the waiter that gives him a drink, and he turns around and his ass is showing, and he was like, "It's my dream." Don't like. She was like, "Really?" And he was like, "It's my dream." Right. So he's able now to control his dreams. Right. So now we're back to Louise. Adele, David, in the morning, he gives her some pills, and she's like, "I don't need them." And he's like, "Take them." So he's trying to give her pills. He's upping her dosage because um, she said, "You want me to take." Oh, he was like, "You want me to take care of you, don't you? Haven't I always taken care of you?" And she was like, "Yes." And she's looking like so depressed and so sad, but evil at the same time. So he gives her the pill. She takes it. He asks her to, "Can I look under your tongue?" And she's like, she shows him. But then right when he leaves, she vomits and she spits it out. So back at the office, everything is closing down, and Louise tells her other admin homegirl that she needs to stay back so David can sign some signatures. She goes in there and she's turning off the light. She gives him the papers to sign signatures. And as she comes back, she sees that guy, Mr. Hawkins, Anthony Hawkins, who I don't know how he got in the building, but he's standing there. It startles her, and he starts calling her all kind of names, calling her bitches and stuff like that. And then David comes out of the office, and he's like, "What are you doing here? It's past office hours." And he was like, "You told me you would be." You know how people who have severe mental illness, they feel like they need to be able to get in contact with their therapist, and they get upset if they're not, right? So he was like, "Let's go talk outside." So while he's talking outside, he talks to him outside. He comes back. He apologizes to Louise for calling her out of her name. She puts him on the books or whatever. So then they go back into David's office. He pulls out this bottle of alcohol, and he was like, "You want a drink?" And then she takes a drink. She's just so enthralled in this relationship, and I just feel like, "Louise, girl, it's just too much." But when she explains to her friend later that, like, why do I always have to make the best decision? Why can't I just do this for myself, right? So anyways, they end up having sex. Yeah, he makes a drink, closes the door. Then you can see hovering. You can still see that hovering. So clearly it's Adele in her dream state, watching her husband do the things that he needs to do, right? So they end up having sex in the office, and again, there's that hovering happening, right? So Louise is talking to her neighbor friend, right? And she's explaining how it seems like she's really in an affair with both of them. And she was like, "I like them both." And she was like, her friend is kind of trying to tell her, like, you cannot be in this type of relationship. You can't be in this type of relationship. And she says, "Why is he having an affair? What's going on with him? Why do I have to be the one to stop? Why can't they stop? They're the ones that's unhappy. Why do I need to stop?" And her friend is looking at her like, "Girl, you're a mess." And she was like, "It just seems like they're happier with me." And she was like, "Why do I always have to do the right thing? Let me enjoy myself. Adam's going to be back in a month. After he comes back, I'm going to be back to my normal life." And then she was like, "You need to ditch both of them." And she was like, "Somebody is going to end up hurt, and it's probably going to be you." And she was like, "Yeah." She doesn't stop, right? So they show like a montage of her opening the door, it's David. Her opening the door, it's Adele. She has not stopped, right? At one point, we see David and Louise meet up, and Anthony Hawkins sees them like running off into the shadows, and he's looking like, "What the hell," right? So then we go back to David and Louise, and they are laying on the couch. Look like they just got finished screwing or whatever. And he talks about how we think we can control our own destiny, and so much of our destiny is shaped by other people's choices, right? And she was like you coming to my door, and he was like you letting me in, right? So then she's rubbing on his scar, right? He has a scar on his arm right here. And she's rubbing on his arm. And she was like, how did that happen, right? And he tells her what happened a long time ago. It was a bad fire. I saved a girl from a fire. And she was like, well, what happened to the girl? The girl is Adele. So he's like, what happened to the girl? And he was like, I don't know what happened to her. So immediately she's like, okay, he's lying to me. Now he's starting to lie. So he lies. And then you could see at that same point, the hovering. The hovering continues, right? Oh, that looked weird. That looked weird. The hovering continues. Okay. So Louise is in the middle of a night terror, and she's having this night terror. She's running down the same dream, running down this hall. She opens the door, and I think she puts her hand on one doorknob, and it's hot. She opens the door, and it's Adele, like screaming. I think she's screaming, no. She's screaming no, and she's on fire. And she closes the door. She goes to another door and opens it, and it's David. And I think he's screaming, run. It's something. He's screaming. They're both screaming. And then she closes the door again. And then when she wakes up, when she comes to out of her night terror, she's in her son's room. So that was something that we have no idea why she saw that. What happened? We don't know. So at this point. So now we have in a flashback of Adele sitting at this table with some older people, and she's signing papers. She's in the mental institution, right? And she's signing these papers. And when she's done signing the paper, she comes out, and Rob was like, well, what was that all about? And she was like, well, David, I'm handing everything over to David so he can watch the house and watch all the finances and things like that. And then even Rob was like, do you think that was a good idea or whatever? And she was like, he always takes care of me. I was like, okay, girl. So now we see Adele. She's walking around the sketchy part of town, and she runs into these thugs, and they give her a black eye. She comes back home. You can see her eye is all black, right? So remember at the beginning of the episode, the way that she was kind of setting up to Louise that he gets stressed out, he drinks, he's out of control, right? So her eye is black. She tells David, well, she tells everybody that she hit the cupboard, hit her face, girl. That when I tell you her eye was, this whole thing right here, it was just purple, okay? So she was like, well, where were you all day? Because David had been calling her. And she was like, I was upstairs. I had an ice pack on my face. I was not well and this and that. And she was like, I was at home and I was at the gym. She was lying again. Now we see that Louise is in a dream state, and she at this point has the ability to control her dream. And this is the first night, and she has a good night's sleep. You could see her like snuggling up. She really has a really good night's sleep. She doesn't have a night terror. Now, David and Adele are having a conversation, and they're just talking and asking questions. And she tells him that she's worried about his drinking, and she's like kind of angry with her. And he says, you said that we were going to have a fresh start here, and before we moved here, what happened wasn't your fault. And he tells her, I can't look after you anymore. And she was like, we share things we can never tell anyone. You can never leave me. You can never leave me. And he was like, I know. He was trying to leave. And he couldn't, right? And so that's how episode 3 ends. So on to episode 4, we see that Louise is in a dream state. She sees her son. They're catching tadpoles. And she turns around and she sees David at the grill. And she tells him, oh no, this is not the part yet. She sees him at the grill. And it's just like this beautiful scene, all little pastel colors. Oh, I have to let my leg out. Oh my God. It's all pastel colors. It's all nice. It's dreamy and everything. And then you could see her and David having sex, what looks like to be her childhood room. So basically to me, the interpretation I got from that was that she's just really in a good space. She's in her childhood room. She's having sex with this man that she likes and all of this stuff. Her son is there. It's just like this happy little situation. And she wakes up happy. Like she wakes up happy and rested. She's out on her balcony. She pulls out a cigarette and she like puts it back. So she doesn't need her cigarette anymore. And maybe her smoking cigarettes was the way to cope with her night terrors. And because she's not having them anymore, she doesn't feel the need to smoke. Adele, an appeal. He gives her another pill. Her eye is still black. She puts it under. He checks under her tongue, and he tells her, "I'm gonna call you at 11:30." And then you could see her like crying, like she's upset. In the flashback with Rob and Adele, Rob is telling Adele. Now you can tell Rob. I don't know if he's bisexual, but he clearly has this adoration for Adele. He likes her a lot. He says in his book that he loves her properly. Like he likes her. But he's also sucking off the guys in the mental institution for weed. And then in his dream is a man half naked. You can see his ass walking away, the server, the guy. So I don't know if he likes guys and girls or he just has this, he just likes Adele in some way. I don't know if it's sexual. I haven't gotten that yet, so I'm not sure if he just admires her or not. You guys let me know what you think about that. So, he's getting ready. It looks like he's getting ready to leave, or one of them is getting ready to leave, and they say, "You promised to visit me," right? She's in a dream state, right? And as soon as the doorbell rings, it's almost like she's reminiscing. So she got out first, I believe. And then he was like, "Come and visit me. I'm better here with you." No, he was getting out. Sorry. He was getting out, and he says, "I'm better in here with you." And he was afraid, like going out into the real world, how he was going to be able to cope. As the doorbell rings, Mr. What's his name? Anthony Hawkins is at the door. Another indication of people not respecting boundaries. He's at his psychiatrist's door. His wife answers the phone. It's Adele, or answers the door. And he sees the black eye. He was like, "Are you okay? Do you need me to help you? Are you his wife?" He's just asking her all these questions. "Did he do that? I can help you." And she was like, "Thank you." Totally manipulating this man, right? The next scene, we see Adele and Louise are meeting up to go to the gym. Louise sees Adele's black eye. She was like, "Girl, what happened to you? Are you okay? Is there do you have anything else going on with you?" She was like, "No, I'm okay. I hit my eye on the cupboard." She was like, "Well, can we not go to the gym today? Can we just, run?" And she was like, "Okay. Let's see." So they're sitting down, they go for a run, they finally get to the top of the hill, and now Adele tells Louise the same thing. "You shine," right? "You shine." And so now Louise is like, okay, now they're using the same shit. They're saying the same things to me. So at that point for me, I would have been like, "Girl, these people, what the hell is going on? Why are they saying it's almost like they have this game that they're playing with Louise, but using her," right? David doesn't know what's going on with Louise and Adele. Adele knows what's happening between David and Louise. So she says, "You're just like Rob," right? And it alerted her when she said, "You shine." And she told her, "You're just like Rob." And she was like, "Tell me about your dream." So she tells her about her dream, and she tells her the good things. She's not very detailed, right? Because David is in her dreams. And then she says, "Do you know you can go anywhere with anyone in your dream?" And she was like, "Don't mind me. Just keep reading. Just keep reading the book." Because she was like, "I feel like I'm in like your business, right? This book is almost like a journal." And she was like, "Don't worry about it. Just keep reading the book. Keep practicing." So that's one clue. The shine. Both of them are saying the same thing. And then she tells Adele, "You've changed my life. I don't know if you've know that, but you've changed my life." And she was like, "That's what friends are for." And she says, "Maybe you'll do the same for me one day." So I'm like, okay, what is happening? What is happening? And I was so tempted to watch episode 5 and 6 last night. And I was like, I'm not watching it until I'm going to watch it and then review it. I'm not going to watch it like I did Bling Empire and Bridgerton and watch it twice. I'm going to watch it. So I have not, y'all, I have not watched 5 and 6. So please don't get in the comments and spoil it, okay? So they're back at the office, right? And the admin and her and the admin are talking, and she was like, what's going on? She was like, Mr. Hawkins is here. They're in the office with Dr. Sharma. And can I just say that Dr. Sharma seems like such a nice, gentle, kind person. I was like, what a way for a therapist or a psychiatrist to be. He's very kind, very soft spoken, like just so like a nice little man, Dr. Sharma. So they're in the office. You can see Dr. Sharma talking to David, and there's that hovering again, right? And he tells David, I have to investigate this. So Anthony Hawkins has told the office that David hit his wife. And David's like, I did not hit my wife. She hit her face. She told me she hit her face on the cupboard. Call her yourself and ask her. I won't say anything, right? So he calls her. Dr. Sharma calls her. And Louise picks up again, right? So Louise is now listening. And even her admin friend was like, girl, are you listening to them? She was like, oh, no, I'm on the phone. She was like, I'm on the phone with the gas. I'm doing my gas bill. But she was listening to them. And so now she hears that there is an accusation or someone saying that David hit Adele. Did David hit you? And she was like, no. She was like, no, I hit my face on the cupboard. No, he did not hit me, right? So David runs home and he was like, why didn't you tell me that Anthony Hawkins came to our house? And she was like, I didn't want to get him in trouble. She told the same thing to Dr. Sharma. And she's like, I didn't want to get him in trouble. And then she was like, well, why did you say that? Why did he say that he saw me hit you? Why did he say that? And she's like arranging flowers. And she was like, what flower do you want? And he was looking at her and she was like, you better tell me what flower you want before I start screaming. And he was like, he looked like he was, when I tell you, he looked like he was so shook. He was like that one right there. And he like kind of backed out of the room. And she just kept doing her flower. I was like, oh, this bitch is out of control. She's crazy. She's crazy. I'm thinking she's crazy. Don't tell me. Anyways, David shows up to Louise's. He's knocking on the door hard, right? And he comes in like nothing, like he's comfortable. He has a bottle of wine. He slams a bottle of wine on the table, opens it, pours it, and is drinking like that. And I just wrote, too comfortable. He was like, I had to see you. Just like, not really caring. It was like both of them are really using Louise. Louise is not, she feels like she's getting something out of this, but I don't think she's realized yet that these two people are using her in some game they got going on with each other. And it seems like they do this regularly, and he has to leave every time it gets too far. That's what I'm getting so far. So he was like, she was like, did you hit your wife? And he was like, of course I didn't. You don't believe me. And he's like, you're the only good thing. You're the only good thing that I have in my life. And I have to keep you separate. I have to keep this separate. I was like, girl, don't do it, Louise. So Louise is kind of like waking up a little bit. And she was like, this isn't helping. And she was like, do you still love Adele? And he was like, for whatever it's worth, she still loves me. And she was like, do you realize how up that sounds? And she was like, go home to your wife, son. Just go home. And when he's walking out the door, she was like, and stop drinking too much. Adele's telling him the same thing. So now he's like, oh my God. So now we're back in Louise's dream. Louise is having a dream. She sees David in her dream and she goes, you're not supposed to be here. And he disappears. So she's getting good. She's getting better. And she sees her son playing with the tadpoles again. And over the pond, she sees a door. She walks towards the door. And then as she opens it, she wakes up. So she doesn't get to actually cross over. But now she knows that she's able to look for the door and is able to cross over into whatever realm she chooses, right? I know the story about Adele. I will look over her. I don't think David will. So in a flashback, it was Rob saying that he doesn't think that David is going to look after Adele. So he feels like he needs to look after her, right? So we're already seeing that Adele is good at manipulating people and getting them to do things without actually having to do it, because when Anthony Hawkins came to her door, she didn't tell him to go tell that my husband hit me. He asked her, "Did he hit you? Are you okay?" And he was like, "Do you need me to help you?" And all she said was, "Thank you." And he went right over there and told on him. She's able to manipulate these people without even saying anything, which is crazy. So now we get to a scene. There's a pot on the stove with some liquid in it. We're also looking at the mural of the forest, and you see Adele on the bed. She's clearly astral projecting at this time. And you see the well and you see a door, right? And Adele walks through the door. Then you see Adele, or you see a hovering. Now, this time you can see kind of like a mist in the air. So now you're clear as to what's happening here. If you were guessing, now you're clear that she's hovering over them. Now you see kind of like a soft mist in the air, right? And then David and Louise are talking, and he's telling her that he's falling in love with her, right? "I'm falling in love with you. I gotta sort some stuff out." As he's telling her, "I'm falling in love with you," you can see Adele's face in her dream state. She kind of has this little small smile, but it goes away. And then she jumps up and she wakes up. And then Louise tells him, "That's not fair that you're feeling like this." And he's like, "I'm going to fix it." And then you see like Adele laying on the bed, like realizing like, shit, he's doing this again. And she like screams, which was really eerie, right? So then we see Adele at the gym, and she's working out, working out, working out, right? And then she tells, as she's walking out of the gym, she's like, "I want to extend the guest gym membership for Louise. And can you call me after 6 to confirm that we have extended her guest membership?" And she's like, "Sure, sure, lady," or whatever. And she was like, "Okay." Then we see Anthony Hawkins and Adele meet up, right? So we're like, what the hell is going on? And he tells her, "I can't see him anymore for whatever, what I did. I'm not allowed to see him anymore." And she was like, he says, "I'm grateful." She says, "I'm grateful." And he hands her something. I don't know what it is. It's something like wrapped up in paper. And he was like, "I know other stuff about him," right? And she was like, "Tell me all about it." And they start walking away. I was like, oh shit, what's happening? So now we see at Adele's house, she has, oh, that's what he gave her, some heroin. So she has some heroin in like a little balloon, how they make it look. They put in a balloon, and she has like this kit, right? And you could see it has like a syringe. It has the thing that you tie around the arm to make the vein pop up. And now you see her having a flashback, and it's her and Rob. Now Rob is at this mansion, this castle that she lives in, and she's showing him pictures, and she was like, "That's my great great aunt Adele. That's my aunt." And she found her husband cheating on her with the help, and she did a spell on him and made him have a heart attack. So that to me like kind of stood out. I was like, okay, it's kind of similar to what she's happening. Her husband is having an affair. He hasn't had a heart attack yet, but maybe she's going to relive her generational curse or what have you. So she walks Rob over to where her parents' wing burned down, because remember, she said she's on a different side of the house and she was asleep when it happened. And he was like, let's leave from here. It's kind of creepy or whatever. And so she asked him, did he have the drugs? And she was like, did you tell David? They're talking, right? They're sitting in front of the fireplace. And she was like, "David's going to be here in a few days." And he was like, "Did you tell him that I didn't know he was going to be here? Does he know I'm here?" And she was like, she didn't tell him. So she tells him also that being rich is lonely. And he was like, "Man, I could live in this house by myself. I wouldn't even worry about it." This is Rob, right? Then we see Adele chopping parsley. Again, this metal on the this metal on the marble, it sounds horrible, right? It's so eerie. It sounds so eerie. So she's chopping parsley, and then the phone rings. David picks up the phone. He says, the person at the gym says, yes, I just wanted to confirm the extended guest membership for Louise, whatever her last, I'm just going to say Louise Smith. And he was like, she was like, hello. And he was like, so when he comes down, she's like, who is that on the phone? She's chopping. Who is real proper, like nothing's wrong, just chopping this parsley or whatever these greens were. And he was like, let me see your phone. He grabs her phone, and he sees all the text messages between her and Louise. And he closes the phone, he grabs the phone, takes it, and as he's walking out, she's still chopping, and this little smile just comes on her face, right? She's a mess. So then the next shot is Louise's apartment. He's knocking on the door. You and Adele have been having this thing the whole time. Why didn't you say anything? She was like, it just happened. They're yelling back and forth at each other. She was like, she's so lonely. It wasn't intentional. She ran into me, and he was like, there's just so many lies. And I thought I can trust you. And she was like, while you're cheating on your wife, let's pretend. Like, really? Like, you really saying you can we supposed to trust each other, and you were already lacking integrity in the whole situation? And then he was like, well, what did she tell you about me? And she was like, I'm everything I am, I hate because of you. So now they're in this like really charged conflict, right? And then he says, she says, I know you have all her money. And then he just stopped. He goes, you're fired. Tomorrow, get your shit. I don't give a fuck what excuse you give. You put in your resignation tomorrow. And he walks out. Stay away from us, he says. This is none of your business. None of your business. So she's on the floor crying, right? She's upset. She done lost her damn job. So the next day, she's giving her resignation. Dr. Sharma is like, I'm always here. Let me know if you need me. And he tells her, we're going to just give you 30 days to get your life together. We'll just say it's a hiatus and you can come back. And we'll call you in 30 days because you're too good. I cannot let you go that easy. And David's looking over his eyes, and the lady's like, well, just let me know. Her friend, the little white lady. She was like, just let me know what's happening. I wish you could tell me what's happening. And she's crying. She's packing up all her stuff and this and that. So Louise, it's raining. She runs over to Adele's house. And she sees Adele in a chair, right? And she could see her through the window. It's raining. I'm like, first of all, Louise, why are you at her house? Girl, go on about your business, but we wouldn't have a story if Louise did go over there. So she's knocking on the window. She sees Adele, and Adele looks like she's passed out. Her arm is hanging. Her head is hanging on the chair. So Louise breaks the window. She runs in and she's like patting Adele. Adele, wake up. Adele, wake up. She looks at her eyes, and I guess her pupils were moving, and so she goes, okay, you're okay. And when she slaps her, it seemed like Adele woke up like 4 times. It was like she jumped up 4 times. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. She jumped up 4 times. I was like, where was she? Where was she, girl? Anyways, so she says, David's not a saint. She was like, why were you passed out? I thought you were dead. What pills does he have you on? And she points to the cabinet. And she was like, these are really strong antipsychotic sedatives. And she says, she tells Louise about him having an affair, and that it was this woman that he, I guess, worked with. And she owned a cafe called the Cozy Cafe. So remember when she said it earlier, and he was like, what are you saying to me? So he was like triggered by that. And she was like, well, when was this? And she was like, it was just right before we moved here. She was like, why don't you leave? And she was like, I'm the crazy wife. I can't leave. He has a file on me. And she was like, he can't know that you were here, right? So that's going to mess up whatever plan Adele has. Anyways, so we go to a flashback We go to a flashback and we're at the well again. And the well, you go down to the well and you see Rob at the well. And let's see, it says back, did you know Louise, did you know, let's see, shows Rob at the well back. Did you know Louise was? It was just one of those things. Things happen. You need more than one. No one knows. David, maybe you should. I'm going to fix things. I don't remember this flashback. I don't remember what happened. But all I know is they showed the bottom of the well and it was a ticking watch. And as they panned out, you can see Rob's body at the bottom of the well. And that's how it ended. So that's episodes 3 and 4. You guys let me know what you think. Like I said, episodes 3 and 4 were mostly like clues and putting things together. I'm sure they'll wrap everything up. I've heard some people say they didn't like the ending. Please do not tell me the ending. Please don't. Okay, I just want to tell you, no spoilers. Anyways, take care of each other. Protect your energy. I don't think I'm going to edit this video at all. I'm just going to upload it so you guys can have it. Now, like I said, get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Take care of each other and protect your energy. Peace.